welcome back to the Red Tinted Glasses podcast. That was a very lively introduction, wasn't it, Glenn?
Yeah, it really was. We have to give a big thanks to the band Skylights, based down in Leeds, but Aberdeen fans as well as Leeds United fans. So we thank them for letting us use their music. That was the introduction to the song YRA. Why don't you guys check them out on Spotify? But I think, Callum, for those that are watching on YouTube today, we've got a bit of a plan for if we ever score a goal.
Yeah, the music will be coupled with the videos from the latest game. The goals from the latest game, videos of the goals. But, we all know that didn't happen this weekend. One word summary for that game against Dundee United, Glenn?
Toothless, based on lack of goals. Toothless up top once again, and it's just very tough to watch. But what about yours?
I sort of echo that, but it's not actually my one word. It's going to be Neil's one word, and we all know what it's going to be. Wonderful. He sums it up so well, so eloquent.
Honestly, he could just be rolled out many a time during the Aberdeen games. He's such a furniture of this show now.
I know, and it's just every time. I've just roll it out every time we get a bad result as well. He's basking in the glory, Neil.
He must be saved in your drafts plenty of times.
It is, yeah. I've got it saved on my phone everywhere, ready to go, just at all opportunities.
Well, we went into the weekend's game in, I don't know, would you say relatively optimistic mood ahead of the, new year, hopeful?
Yeah, a little bit. I thought, well, we've played them once before. We know what they're like. We know exactly how we should approach it this time. Alas, no changes, all the same. It wasn't great. It wasn't great, was it?
No, and I was maybe surprised, I think, as many would have been to see Niall McGinn come out of the cold, really, and into the starting 11. That was resulted in Sam Cosgrove dropping down to the bench. And in a more expected change was Ross McCrory returning to the centre of midfield and Dean Campbell taking to the bench. What did you make of McGinn in particular?
It was just sort of standard McGinn. I think it's a bit painful watching him these days, given how we remember him very, very fondly. And like that sort of pace and a bit of electricity about him has gone a bit. Obviously, still very good technically and all that good stuff, but it's just sometimes a little bit slow. And it's like, it's tainting my memory a little bit. I think him and sort of overall in the first half, it was okay. It was all right. There wasn't bad by any means. There was some chances created, but it was just still didn't sort of get me too. It wasn't a good start to the year. I'm just gonna say it. It wasn't a good start to the year, was it?
It didn't drive you to the edge of your seat.
Not even once.
I think his first half, he looked okay and he was attacking, but I think his second half performance and probably the Aberdeen performance as a whole was summed up by his attempted cross in the second half when he beat the man and the cross didn't even get off the ground. It just trundled out for a goal kick.
I blanked that from my memory, honestly. When I watch Aberdeen games now, I watched the whole 90 minutes and I don't remember a thing about them. In the notes, you've got speaking about the penalty shout later on, and I was like, what penalty shout? I had to watch Sports and I was like, oh yeah, that happened. I totally blank everything, and I blanked that cross out of my mind immediately. Oh, it was bad. And then Robson did one even worse later on. Oh, it was a nightmare.
I'm so glad you remember things from the games when we've got to do these podcasts.
It's not my fault. I think it's just the way I am right now, given all that's going on. I just don't remember anything. Everything blurs into one. But then also when the game's not that memorable either, it doesn't really help.
That's true, but God help us when we can actually get back to games and start drinking at games.
I think you might have to refrain. We won't remember a thing. It'll be like, so it was a good goal, wasn't it? What are we talking about? It was, that'll be a nightmare. Stay tuned for that.
Especially our away day buses, because, they get lively.
They're dry buses, Glenn. We don't want anything. Yeah, okay, good. But no. Oh, I'm not looking forward to that. Trying to recall everything.
Back to the football, I suppose, before we get down a very dangerous path. First half, creative, I would have said, but without threatening the goal.
Basically, yeah. I mean, Seagrass had a save to make from McCrory's header. That was about it. And he directed that pretty well, but it was still easy for the big man. I suppose we had a lot of the ball, and at times there was Johnny Hayes saved up all his crosses for the last month in the first 45. Then it was terrible in the second 45. But in the first 45, put in a few decent balls from the left-hand side. Again, just without creating much. And it was Lawrence Shankland who had basically the best of the chances despite all of our play.
Yeah, he did rattle the bar within about 5 minutes, so you can tell how exciting that first half was when that was the best chance of the half. But you touch on there about the crossing of the team, Hayes in particular. We got balls into dangerous areas, but the players were just almost standing and admiring, or we just didn't have anybody there to get on the end of it. And you're probably looking at a Cosgrove on the bench or a Marley Watkins before this his injury as prime candidates to be getting on the end of it. And Curtis Main, to be fair to him, works hard, but he's just never in the right area for these crosses.
There was one where he nearly got a toe on it, but that's about the best we can say for poor Curtis. He tries his best, but I think without anyone up there, a proper goal scorer. But even then, when we've seen him up alongside Cosgrove, it's not really worked so well. But I suppose they need probably a bit more time. Cosgrove, I think, should probably come back into the team going to the next game. I know we'll speak about that later. But just a bit of a goal threat, a bit more of a goal threat is needed, very much needed. Yeah,
definitely. And I think we kind of saw that with Curtis Main in the second half. There was a chance where he kind of snatched at the finish, which went over the bar. And we just seemed to lack any sort of composure in the final third. The Motherwell game, we lacked the composure in terms of getting the ball into the box. And now on Saturday or whenever it was, I'm losing track of the days, against Dundee United, when we did get the ball into the box and created that rare chance, we just panicked and it just didn't come to anything.
Yeah, it's a little bit worrying. And then we did have the penalty shout as well. What did you make of that? I know, thank you.
I have to say I thought it was a penalty. Given the kind of soft penalty we got against St Johnstone, some may say this was definitely more of a penalty. I was quite surprised, given the standard of refereeing we've seen so far this season, that it wasn't given. Yourself, after being fresh in your memory?
I've reviewed it. You've definitely seen them given. It's one of those ones you've seen them given. But then at the same time, if that's in the other box and it's Lawrence Shankland going down, I'm probably going, oh, what a diver. He's gone down so easy. That's probably, it's one of those ones.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. One thing to note from the first half and throughout the game was Dundee United played young Nielsen. He was only 17-year-old at centre-back, and he was only drafted into the team, to the starting lineup after the warm-up when Ryan Edwards got injured. Quite disappointing, I suppose, from an Aberdeen point of view, that we didn't manage to test a young centre-back. I know we didn't get the physical presence of Cosgrove on until later on, but even Cosgrove didn't really kind of impact him. But I suppose that's, good for him. Shows that he's got qualities to deal with our strike force.
Yeah, I remember seeing him on Sportscene a few times this season. It was not the first time he's been involved, and he does look, for being so young, he's pretty big lad, I suppose. But I think in the first half we sort of got at him a little bit more, played down. He was more on the right hand side a little. We got down that side a little bit, especially through Hayes. In the second half, it didn't test that sort of side nearly enough. A bit concerning. You would have thought, when you see that sort of change, I think, sort of pinpoint him and see how good he really is, see if he's cut out for it. And that didn't really happen as much as we would have liked.
No, and I think the other thing for me watching that first half, I don't know if you seem to blank everything out, so you probably didn't notice this, but maybe for those of you that are listening and watching, it's something that you observed as well. So I noticed there was quite a distinct gap between Curtis Main up top on his own and our midfield. I kind of draw back again to when Marley Watkins was involved. He was there and it was easy to link in with the midfield. But now when we're lumping balls up to Curtis Main or playing them down the wing for Curtis to try and get on the end of, there's such a gap to our midfield that there's a struggle to then get the midfield involved. And I think we kind of saw that evolve into the second half when we we really had a big drop-off in performance.
Yeah, it is very, very worrying. It's a good point you make about Marley Watkins, but it is a bit exciting. And also, when you're lumping the ball up to Curtis, okay, he's absolutely that he's built. He's a physical player, but he's not the tallest guy by any means. I think he is only about 6 foot, maybe 6'1" at most. He's not sort of your classic target man, 6'3" odd and more. He's not the biggest player, so it's just. It's not great. And then even if he does win it or does something, he's got so much to do to hold it up or flick it on or connect the play because there's such a gap before anyone gets up in support of him. It's pretty worrying. I think what you can only ask Ryan Hedges to do so much when Scott Wright's not in the team. It's not great. It's pretty worrying. But thankfully, Scotty did come back on and he looked pretty bright. He looked pretty bright in the second half for the sort of half an hour or so that he played.
Yeah, he did come on despite Dave McDermott and Stuart Duff being thoughtful that he was injured. Another dodgy display in the commentary box. I think Stuart Duff again proving he's probably on levels with Kevin McNaughton. Not that he was bored, but some interesting name choices. I think Keith said, did you hear him call somebody Johnny Smith? I didn't realise Johnny Smith was back playing for Aberdeen again.
There was Johnny Smith and John Harkes was in midfield for Dundee United as well. Which, okay, that is Ian Harkes' dad, but he's also 53 years old, so get up with times, Dave.
Yeah, but speaking of the second half, we touched on the drop-off in performance. McInnes came out and said that we lost control in that second half. Is that something you would agree with?
I think so. I'd say probably Dundee United, well, definitely had a better first half, second half than first. I don't know whether they were I don't even know if they were in control, to be honest, but we certainly weren't, so... That is a bit worrying considering we're at home. It's still tight. It's 0. It's a 0-0 game. It's a game where you go into it, you're thinking this is a game we should be picking up 3 points. And no disrespect to Dundee United, but it didn't happen. And we did seem to lose our sort of hold in the game that we did have from the first half. We didn't have many clear-cut opportunities, but we were sort of getting some decent balls in the box and things at least. And it was just a bit worrying. I pinpointed Ferguson and McCrory. They were pretty anonymous throughout the whole game, not only just the second half, the first half as well, which is worrying, and especially worrying when you consider, as I remember just before we started recording, Ross McCrory won't even be playing in the next game. Good.
Yeah, no, as if folk didn't need depressed enough. Thanks for that, Callum.
Yeah, no problem.
But no, you make a good point about kind of Dundee United, saying no disrespect to Dundee United and that we should be getting 3 points. I think that's a fair comment to make. Home games, we always speak about, or in the past we spoke about, our fans, I should say, spoke about Pittodrie being a fortress. And there's no disrespect in saying that we should be expecting 3 points from home games. And yeah, it was quite disappointing that we did lose control in the manner that we did. But looking at that, do you think we should have maybe changed something sooner? Do you think that's the manager's responsibility to win back control? But I think what you've touched on there about the midfield is an excellent point, because the players on the pitch also need to be taking a lot of responsibility when the game's going by. And you look to your midfielders in Ferguson and McCrory. Campbell did obviously come on, to try and give us some impetus into the midfield and drive us forward.
Yeah, I definitely do mean that. No disrespect on United, because I think they were well worthy of the point, in all honesty. But yeah, it was a little bit more concerning. I think we did get a little bit better when Wright came on. We sort of had a little bit more drive and a little bit more impetus, if that's the right words to use.
Yeah.
But the fact it took until that to happen, it's a bit worrying, because we've seen it before coming out of the second half, and it's just somehow even worse. Like, what is being said at halftime that's getting to that stage? But you're right, there is some responsibility for the players on the park, because ultimately McInnes isn't on the park. It's only then that can sort of affect it once they're out there. Yeah, it was a bit worrying. And hopefully Dino will come smashing in at the weekend, and he'll take control. Fingers crossed.
He'll have no Under Armour on, so that'll be no problem.
He's ready to just take bodies. Absolutely loving it. I hope so.
I'm sure Steve will be having a word with him the Friday night, saying, you know what to do.
Yeah, we take no responsibility. Just saying.
Yeah, just saying, if he gets sent off, that's not how we're doing.
No,
but I think, we've been critical of McInnes in the past, but but I think it's also fair to reflect that the players do have responsibility on the pitch. And it's a good point you make there. He's not on the pitch to influence. He did make the changes. Okay, I think it's fair to say maybe a bit too late. I know you like to harp on about the 5 changes, and we didn't make use of the 5 changes again, but our bench is quite young and inexperienced on that side of things as well. We did touch at the start of the episode, that we would, hopefully have some goals in future to show. We didn't today, but do you think this is kind of another repeat? We looked at the Motherwell game. We're struggling to break teams down that like to sit in against us.
Yeah, they do sort of say, okay, then, you're Aberdeen, you come and break us down then, and then it's up to us, and then they'll hope to hit us in the break. And we are struggling to do that, which I would like a creative spark to come in January. As Mr. McKinnon said, a game changer. I think we all know who I'm alluding to here. Mr. Kais. Scott Wright, first of all. But to be fair, now that he's back in the team, hopefully he'll be in from the start against Rangers, and we can see a bit more of that, a bit more creativity. But we all know it was mackay-steven I was referring to, in case anyone missed that. I think that'd be a nice other option to come in. Do you not think? People are saying, oh, well, where does he fit in? Oh, yeah, I forgot having more than 2 creative players in the team was a terrible idea. It doesn't make sense. What's the challenge? Then, options on the bench. You saw how bad we were without Scott Wright. You can't just leave it on Ryan Hedges. Mackay-Steven. We're not going to go out and splash the transfer fee, are we? A free transfer. He's proven in the league. Get him in. Get him signed. Sorry, I had my Rio Ferdinand. How much you want on the paper? Get it signed. GMS is at the wheel.
A nice, oh Christ, McInnes is at the wheel. That's going to come back to haunt us. That clip. I can tell already.
Oh well.
We will come to that because I know you want to speak about it passionately. But it was good to see Scott Wright come back and be involved. Unlike Dean, he's stuck with the Under Armour and also gloves as well. So he's maybe feeling the cold after being left out a bit. But hopefully, getting minutes under the belt, we'll see more of that at the weekend. And we certainly need an attacking threat going into the weekend.
Yeah, I hope he's in from the start against Rangers. So you have another week of training under the belt as well as that half an hour or so that he played. He should be okay to go from the start, I guess. If he doesn't get kicked up in the air, I say that. But I suppose it'd probably be McGinn that drops out. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that's what I've got in the notes when we come to the game, and I think there shouldn't be many complaints from the fans about that change. Just a word on United to finish up. Red TV claimed that there was a similar game to the 0-0 at Tannadice in September, but I don't really think it was. I thought we were a lot better in the game at Tannadice. We created a lot more. And certainly at the weekend, United had the best chances. Shanklin looked lively, second half as well. There was one kind of defensive scare where the ball flashed across the front of the face of our goal, and also Shanklin had a shot from the edge of the box that Joe Lewis had to do well to tip round the post. So, yeah, United looked a lot better.
Yeah, they did. They were decent in the second half. They created a few chances. It was mainly through Lawrence Shanklin as well. You meant, the defensive lapse for that one where I think Taylor, they blamed Considine for not being tight to his man, but Taylor did flick it on for him. I've been sticking up for Birkenhead Baresi, so I'm allowed that one, which is a bit concerning. And it was a good save from Joe Lewis as well, because of course he didn't have too many saves, so good to see he's actually switched on this time, unlike some times recently. But yeah, no, that was a good save. It was very Dundee United. I think they were better than the first time round. They sort of set up for the point down there, whereas up here they did threaten. It was mainly through Shanklin. No one's really shocked by that, but I'm just glad he didn't score and come back to haunt us, in all honesty. I'm sure this time will come.
Definitely. So the result saw that our second 0-0 in 3 games. It takes our unbeaten run to 7, although I kind of feel saying that kind of masks over some of the performances. We're now 3 points clear of Hibs with 2 games in hand and 4 points behind Celtic ahead of the weekend's game against Rangers. So would you be happy with kind of where we are just now in that unbeaten run?
It would have been nice to pick up wins against sort of Motherwell and Dundee United as well, and then obviously if we could have, maybe Livingston as well. But that's a perfect world. I suppose the fact we're unbeaten is better than obviously it's better than we're not, but it's not. It's not thrilling. It's not a thrilling unbeaten run. It's not what I'd hoped when I'd pinpointed this run going into the Rangers game. But it could always be worse. It could be worse. It could be better, but it could definitely be way, way, way worse.
Yeah, and I think, well, you look at Livingston's run of form just now, it's maybe a blessing that the game was
Possibly.
off. Look what they did to Hibs at the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I think, though, for me, the overriding feeling is we should be kind of taking more of our opportunities when other teams drop points, Hibs especially. Livingston are going about their business quite quietly. They've also got a couple of games in hand on Hibs, and they'll maybe fancy a late run for Europe with the third and fourth both getting European football this season.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, why not? Because I mean, we are not blowing anyone away. Celtic's not blowing anyone away, and Hibs aren't. We're all there for the taking. If you look at us, how we've been playing recently. So, I mean, yeah, go for it, Livingston, and maybe it'll give us a boot up the backside that we need. A team, if the gap does close between us and sort of fifth place or whatever, because we've sort of been comfortable. I guess maybe that's another reason. So maybe if they start closing that gap, that might be the kick up the one we need. Hopefully.
Yeah, you never know. With the latest restrictions, who knows what's going to happen with the Celtic squad when they come back from Dubai? Will they have to quarantine? Will the borders be shut and they can just stay there? That'd be quite interesting.
Yeah,
But
it's mental.
funny, there's no punishment coming their way. I'm sure if they'd gone to a bar and sat in a bar and caught COVID that way, we would see a wee punishment coming their way.
Not that you're bitter about it or anything.
No, no, just saying.
It is a bit mental, and especially considering how much trouble Bolognoli got in for just one of them going away, and now they're all going away. But it was sanctioned in November, and then they just didn't speak to the government about it since then. And they said, "Okay, you said it's fine, so we're going," and just didn't talk to them about it at all. So
we can't travel to Dundee yet. They can travel to Dubai, but hey ho.
yeah, it seems a bit mental. It's also the fact they went there after such a bad performance against Rangers. I'm sure the Celtic fans are buzzing about that.
Yeah. I mean,
well.
could you imagine if that was the Aberdeen players getting their Dubai jaunt this year, which obviously they're missing out on?
Yeah, no, it wouldn't have gone down well. It wouldn't have gone down well, but well, the less we speak about them, the better.
Yeah.
I can see you're getting incensed.
We're in January. We touched on the transfer window in our last episode. It's only fair to speak about it again, given there's been some transfer talk this week and some movement in the transfer window in the sense that we've had players recalled from loan spells. And also, you've already touched on it, McInnes's search for a game changer. Do you believe that will be GMS?
If it's not, then I'm quite excited to see what's in store. If it's better than GMS, that would be even better. But I've got a feeling it might just be GMS, to be fair. Because we're obviously not going to go out spending huge transfer fees, so it'll be free transfers, and other than sort of players like that from America whose contracts are expiring, that kind of thing, who else is available right now for free transfers? There's probably not that many about. But it could see a lone player coming up from England or something like that. We've seen some players like that in the past, so it could be something down that sort of line. But I've not heard anything. So I'm all aboard the GMS train, in case you can't tell.
No, it hasn't come across at all. But McInnes has said he's got a plan in place and is prepared to play the waiting game for signing. So, it'll be all of us up till deadline day on staying up till midnight for the inevitable League One loan signing that comes in.
It'll be. I'm predicting Greg Tansey disappointment on the final day all over again. Something like that. Oh, I don't like that. But if they go about the business quietly, then that's fine. I like it when I don't hear about it, then out of nowhere it comes in. That's when I like it.
But that's very true. One person that has been muted in the press today was Dunfermline defender Ewan Murray. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's the Daily Ranger that's reporting the story, so we'll take it with a pinch of salt, but we'll also look into it. 6 foot centre half, 26 years of age, scored 7 goals so far this season. Man. Not bad for a centre half. Probably got a bigger forehead than me, so good target for set pieces, which is certainly something we're lacking.
Well, we need goals, so Sign him and put him up front. That's all I'm saying. Nah, in all honesty, I don't have I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know loads about the man. I've heard that he likes to score a goal or two, which is obviously nice, and it would be welcome addition. We probably do need a centre half, but I think is it maybe a pre-contract move they're looking at.
I would assume so, and potentially if we're speaking of a centre half, it's a young centre half, a replacement for a certain injury-prone centre half in Devlin.
Possibly, and also it might be one of the type of things last year where we got Matty Kenny a pre-contract that we might just try snip him on the cheap in January. You never know. I know we won't have loads of money to spend, but it probably wouldn't demand too much for a transfer fee. And also, it totally depends on what happens with Messrs Hernandez, who is looking very happy, may I say, and I'm delighted for him.
Looking in a very nicely coloured sea posing with his best friend, who just happens to be an Atlanta United fan.
He's having a great time. He's having a great time, and more power to
him. Speaking of other players who are plying their trade in the Championship, Bruce Anderson and Mikko Virtanen have both been recalled from their loan spells. I think it's harsh to say Bruce Anderson's been recalled. I think it's more he's been sent back from Ayr United. Whereas reading the Arbroath statement on their website, it's definitely been a case that he's been recalled, and they're disappointed to see him return to Aberdeen because he has featured more than Bruce Anderson so far this season, playing 8 of Arbroath's 10 matches and starting all those 8 that he has played in, coming up to over 700 minutes of football so far this season in the Championship. Has incurred the wrath of Dick Campbell this season by playing against Dundee despite being injured. So he got hooked at half-time. So Dick Campbell's not really the guy you'd want to mess with. But, he was young player of the season at Arbroath last season, and he's got experience at international level of playing right back. So, fair enough getting a player like him recalled into our squad, midfielder and flexibility at right back.
Definitely. He's also a very nice man. I've met him before in town. I was slightly inebriated, but he's a lovely man. So that's another bonus. But I think when you sort of look at how our bench has been lately, there has been sort of 3 or 4 youth players with barely any first team experience, talking a handful of appearances sort of between them. So I suppose in that case, it'll probably bolster the bench, nothing else. Obviously, players who've played first team football. Virtanen not here, but Bruce obviously has. And interesting, I mean, Bruce obviously won't be going out on loan either because the only 2 teams he can play for, us and Ayr, due to the sort of registration rule kind of thing. And so I think bolster the bench, but that also might mean we might not see a striker come in if Cosgrove doesn't leave. It might just be Bruce Anderson coming back in, which I suppose a bit of a poacher. But not encouraging that he's not played so much for Ayr or scored as many goals as we would have maybe liked, but a bit of a poacher, not a bad thing. Decent option off the bench, I suppose. And Virtanen as well, encouraging another versatile player, a bit of the Ross McCrory, about him. I still get those 2 confused. Absolute nightmare. I don't know how, because they're in one place for us, but yeah, I think it's encouraging, I suppose, get them back now. I can only think Virtanen, having spent time under Dick Campbell, will be a good thing for him, just to harden him up, if nothing else, because he will not take any shit regardless. So
exactly, and I think given how highly rated he has been by Arbroath, McInnes seems to like him as well. He is out of contract in the summer, so it's possible that he's being brought back to maybe feature for us if needed. Injuries, and like you say, also gives us, with McGeoch still out just now, and obviously McCrory's out for the weekend that you've touched on. It's maybe just an added bonus for us. We've got a little bit of extra depth there. Bruce Anderson obviously did get off to a good start at Ayr, scoring against, I think it was Albion Rovers in the League Cup, but since then he's only started 7 times for Ayr United in their 11 Championship games. Not played as much football as Virtanen, only 600 odd minutes, and just 2 of 9 shots on target. So there is a lone striker role that Ayr United play. We saw how he wasn't suited to that at all on the opening day of the season. So maybe just shows he's not suited to that sort of formation, but kind of frustrating probably, given how well he did at Dunfermline. Well, certainly better than he was doing at Ayr, and that he hasn't gone on to kind of prove his is worth at that sort of level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think possibly he might be in the mould of sort of Watkins, and not in physical presence, but in terms of he'd be better off up there alongside someone as the sort of link kind of thing, maybe. And I think Watkins is possibly, I think he's maybe going back down to Bristol City. I think they've maybe said he's just going to stay down there. So I suppose that sort of makes sense, taking Bruce back in at no cost. Another thing, Vertonghen as well, watched him against Hearts in one of the games earlier in the season, and I think Hearts did win, I believe. But he did perform well for them against, obviously, still a decent Hearts side, so that's encouraging as well. Hearts probably a better football side than some of the teams in our division, so it's encouraging. It's encouraging.
Yeah, and we speak about he played only the first half against Dundee, but again, Dundee are no mugs this season either. So, and the Championship is a competitive league. Arbroath finished 4th last season, which we touched on there. He was their young player of the season last season. Arbroath aren't having as good a season this year, but it's still vital experience and first team experience for young players. Bruce, though, obviously coming back to Aberdeen, also out of contract in the summer. This is a big few months for him, but you've touched on there, you've linked it in nicely for me. Marley Watkins, if he does stay down at Bristol City, there's a gap there for Bruce to maybe try and fill. Probably not to the extent that we would wish for. But Ryan Edmondson is another striker whose loan deal also expires this month. So if that wasn't to get extended along with Marley Watkins, then it's 2 strikers out, 1 striker back. Greg Lee and Gary Woods, both their loan deals also expire this month. I think Thomas Cherney, well, he's swimming in the North Sea most days, so surely he's back fit, if not a bit crazy. Greg Lee, hamstring injury, so he's probably still going to be out for another couple of months, weeks, definitely. So maybe an indication of why Vertonghen's been brought back, because it's defensive cover that Greg Lee was brought in for that he can't fulfill just now.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important. And then I think in the case of Gary Woods, that probably will just be that one's definitely written off with Big Thomas, the psycho effort again, which is it's nice. It's nice. It's a good point to make about Vertonghen possibly being sort of defensive cover with Greg Lee. I was quite excited when Greg Lee came back, and it's not really worked out because of injuries, I suppose. But I suppose there's still a chance it might. I don't know whether it will get extended or not, but I think he's still a good option to have when fit. Greg Lee sort of can cover the left side of the defence as well as wing back roll back up to Johnny Hayes. But I suppose that's one we'll just have to wait and see about.
Yeah, I suppose he's a good squad player, and maybe if we've got a busy month. The Livingston game that was postponed is rearranged for later on in the month in February. Well, we've got the Scottish Cup at the end of the month, and obviously we start going further in the Scottish Cup as well, and we might have a run of games. So it's just good. Maybe if we can just maybe do like a monthly contract with him. I don't know how easy that is, how that all works. Good just to keep till the end of the season as a squad player. We know what he's capable of. One other piece of signing news was young Calvin Ramsey signing a contract till 2024, highly rated 17-year-old. Good to see the youth players kind of investing in their future and signing long-term deals. 3 years, that is long-term in football these days.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one sort of people have got high hopes for. I certainly know Football Manager has got good potential, but I mean whether that will translate to real life, we'll see. But yeah, very encouraging the fact they've given him such a long deal as well. Obviously, it says that Aberdeen have got full belief in them, because otherwise they wouldn't have afforded him that sort of time. So very encouraging, and hopefully we can see him sort of push for things. You never know. We'll see what happens, because there's no one really holding down that right wing back spot. Sort of players just coming in. It's usually more forward players coming in and sort of just taking turns and playing in there. Kennedy, Hedges, McLennan. So you never know. There's an opportunity there. Let's see what you can do.
Yeah, definitely. He's been in and around the first team this season. He's been on the bench a few times. Not like got many minutes, if at all. So it's good though that we are investing, but tying these players down before English clubs come sniffing about and tempting them away.
We've seen it before. We don't want it to happen again.
No, we certainly don't. So we'll turn our attention to the weekend. we welcome league leaders Rangers to Pittodrie. Excited for the game, Callum?
No, absolutely not. Probably just leave it there. I'm quite worried. I'm pretty worried. They've obviously looked pretty good off the back of, well, they didn't look great in the first half, I suppose, against Celtic, but they got the win ultimately, and that's all they'll be bothered about. So they'll be buzzing off of that. We are the opposite of buzzing. They've got a huge gap at the top of the league, 19 points. We've seen what they can do to us already this season. Have we learnt our lesson? There's only one way we're going to find out, and we're going to find out this Sunday, but I'm not confident about it whatsoever.
No, and yeah, we've lost 1-0 on the opening day of the season and then got absolutely papped at Ibrox. So hopefully we can actually score a goal against them this season, if we even look like scoring, that is. But I think Kemar Roof picked up a knock in that Old Firm game, so he's injured. I know Morelos got booked, and that was his 5th booking of the season. I don't know quite how it works in Scotland compared to England, if it's an automatic suspension for the next game.
I think we saw with the McCrory one. I think it carries over like a few games in advance. I don't really know what the reasoning is behind that at all, to be honest. But so he'll probably play, which brilliant, I suppose. Can't wait to see him ruffle up our defence. God, just hope no one rugby tackles him, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. So we've kind of touched on the Aberdeen team. We know what Rangers will threaten. They've threatened it and proven it plenty of times to us this season already. From an Aberdeen perspective, we touched on it already. Cosgrove to start over Curtis Main, and Scott Wright to start over Niall McGinn.
Yeah, I think definitely for me, those two would be two changes that I'd make through choice. And then, of course, we're going to be forced into Ross McCrory. Oh, my God, it's so bad. Ross McCrory dropping out of the first team because he can't play against Rangers, and it's really breaking my heart. And then Campbell will come in. The reason I keep saying Robbie McCrory is I always got it mixed up on Football Manager, and we've just played Livingston on my Football Manager, so listen, you should check it out. And it was against Robbie McCrory, and I was very focused on calling him a loser. So that was why I just keep getting it mixed up. So there we go. But that'll be a change we're forced to make. I mean, we've seen Campbell come in the recent times and do pretty well since he's got rid of that Under Armour. So here's what we can do the same again and really prove his worth this weekend. That's my hopes.
Yeah, and he's a local lad. He knows what Aberdeen Rangers clash means to the fans as well. So, we spoke about in the Dundee United game, when we lost control, there was no passion and drive pushing the team on. Hopefully, we see that from Dean. He knows the importance of these games to the fans. He is an Aberdeen fan. He sat in amongst us when he was growing up. His dad still sits in the South Stand. So, let's hope that we get some of that passion on the pitch on Sunday, as you say. But it's about time the players did their talking on the pitch against Rangers.
I've not seen anything yet about them going, oh, we've got a point to prove or whatever, coming out and saying, this is a good chance for us to show what we're really about this season. None of that nonsense. I've not seen any of it yet, but it's still early days. And here's hoping we don't see any of it and we can just, as you said, just see it talking on the pitch, show that you're up for it, never mind telling us, prove what you're about.
Yeah, well, you obviously haven't seen the misleading Ash Taylor headline that came out, but if you actually it's great, they've headlined it brilliantly to lure Aberdeen fans in, because I think he says, we're ready to show that we can give them a game, words to that effect. But if you actually read the article in full, he never once mentions what they've actually headlined the article. So a total misleading story. But obviously, as per usual, most fans fall for that headline. Oh, just do the talking on the pitch. But thankfully, a lot of fans actually did bother to read the article and have cottoned on to the fact. But, we've heard it all before about, it's time to raise performances. It's time to show that, we can compete. Let's hope that we actually see that on Sunday.
Yep, it's needed. It's very much needed. Things are so dull, so boring right now. Nobody's having a good time. Come on, give us something to celebrate, please.
Yeah, and, we need to make these games hard for Rangers. We spoke about, you touched on saying, no disrespect to Dundee United, we should be looking for 3 points against them. And I think, no disrespect to Rangers, as much as we can't stand them, we should always be looking for 3 points at home. And there's no reason why we shouldn't have that mentality going into this game, regardless of how Rangers are coming into this game.
Yeah, I mean, I have absolutely zero confidence that it'll happen. I'm saying everything very
So do I.
hopefully.
I'm the exact same, but I'm just trying.
So pot. Yeah, I'm saying things very hopefully. I hope that they'll come out and we'll, prove what we're worth and all that stuff. It would be nice to be the first team to beat them in the league this season. That would be lovely. It would be good to show we're not just this team that will just roll over every single time as we have so far this season. It would be nice. Also, just give us something entertaining to watch, please. Lift our spirits. Get us going again. Give us something to be excited about. That would be very much appreciated.
Well, we can but hope that is something exciting that we'll have to talk about next week on the show. But it was, those of you that are regular podcast listeners, maybe listen to the Totally Scottish Football show. And JJ Bull was quick to, when he was asked if he's looking forward to the game, his one word was no, and they ended their podcast on that. That's how much he was excited to chat about the game. So at least we've provided a bit more insight. But speaking of one word, Callum, thoughts ahead of the weekend?
Terrified. No need to expand. You all know why. I'm terrified. Glenn, what were yours?
Yeah, mine is the same. Worried.
And there we have it.
Really worried in our lack of attack, and what another damaging defeat, if that's what transpires, could do to the confidence. I really hope we don't get pumped again.
Yeah, basically, if we can avoid, honestly, I would take a score draw at this. Right now, I'd take a score draw, something to celebrate, a goal to celebrate. That would be lovely. But who knows? And on this very, very upbeat note, thanks very much for listening, everybody.
Yeah, and thanks again for tuning in. And we also should give a quick shout out to the guys at Red Point of View for retweeting our Jamie Smith podcast, the interview with him, which is now our 5th episode to reach 100 listens. We hope you've been enjoying the former player content. We hope you enjoyed the music intro. That was some feedback that you guys have given us that you would like to hear. If there's anything else you would like to see or us to discuss on the show, why don't you comment below? If you're watching on YouTube, tweet us at RTG_podcast. Johnny Bain, he messaged us with the idea of the McInnes Draft Project. That episode recently hit 100 listens and it's got just under 200 views on YouTube. So we're willing to listen to ideas that you guys have got, and that idea from Johnny has been a successful one. So much so that we're hoping to do a similar one, but with our worst 11. So, there's potential. If you've got ideas, we can spin it into something. Johnny's given us another idea, which we will look to do potentially after the January transfer window has been closed. And we won't reveal too much into that one just now. But, we really do appreciate those that are interacting with us, sharing the content. And Callum, you can point to where people will be able to subscribe, like, and hopefully not dislike.
Exactly. I mean, even I don't know what this new idea is. So I think it probably, the fact he's not telling me, he's keeping me out of the loop. I think it's worth subscribing for. You can subscribe down below on YouTube, like the video, and then follow us on whatever podcasting platform you listen to as well. And obviously, as Glenn mentioned, RTG_podcast. I got it right this time on Twitter. Thank you very, very much for tuning in.